यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य
ओम ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञान घन प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्माहमस्मि सोहमस्मि ब्रह्माहमस्मि। ओम प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। May the Almighty Shri Lord Venkateshwara bestow all kinds of prosperity, health, wealth and eternal happiness with Paripurna Lakshmi Katakshams to you and the entire your family and friends. Let us begin Bhagavad Gita, verse number 14 of 13th chapter. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha सर्वेन्द्रिय गुणाभासं सर्वेन्द्रिय विवर्जितं असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च. From verse number 12, Bhagavan has begun to talk about Nyaya Vastu. Nyaya Vastu means an entity that which is to be known, there is no option. And this entity is described by Bhagavan up to verse number 18. And this topic is very important topic in Bhagavad Gita. Nyaya Vastu means what? Nyaya Vastu means an entity to be known. What is that? Brahman. Then what is Brahman? Brahman is everything. Now these definitions, they make more complications, So we are a little bit confused. So let me explain in simple way. So what exactly Brahman? According to Taittiriya Upanishad, that which is known as Sat, Chit, Anantam. Three kinds of attributes are given by Shastra. Now what is Brahman? That which is Sat, that which is Chit, that which is Ananta Vastu. Sat means what? The entity which exists, which alone exists. That's what the meaning which we are going to see. An entity which exists, which doesn't have past and present and future, which exists without undergoing any modifications. Because all these names and forms which are in the form of creation, they undergo the modification. But this entity which is existent as the substance of all object doesn't undergo any modification. Acha, is there any entity called Sat? Now you see Shastra, when it introduced in the last session, we saw, Brahman cannot be seen, Brahman cannot be understood, Brahman cannot be imaginated. But that Brahman is Sadvastu, that which is. Now every object has got that is principle. I make it like a principle, is principle, existence. I am, you are, he is. Am, are, is. All these three verbs indicate what? Something existent. I am. The am indicates that I am, that existent of my life, or existence of me, or denotes your existence. And they are, he is, everything. All these verbs confirm their object exists. The Brahman alone exists in the form of existent substance in all material. That's what is taught by last verse. Now Sad, Brahman is Sat. Brahman explained as Sadvastu. And this verse also talks the same. Brahman is the existent material or existent entity in all object. It's very easy to understand. Brahman is Sadvastu. Then that Sadvastu is not Jadam. It's a Chaitana Vastu. Therefore, one more word is supplied, Chidvastu. That Chidrupa is not explained here. Now only Sad. Brahman is Sadvastu. What exists is nothing but Brahman. But it is not seen. You may ask the question, whatever you see, that which is endowed with different name and form, all of them has existence, isness. That is what is called Brahman. That is Sad principle. Sad means to be, to exist. Okay. Now I am, that mountain is, river is, there is, sun. The sun is. That every object has got isness, that existence is Brahman. Now the connection between that existent substance and the material, so what kind of connection? So that is said here in this verse. Now this isness becomes Brahman means, what about the object? Object is material principle. Already we have concluded the world is nothing but the combination of matter and conscious principle. Now conscious principle has been taught as a Sadvastu Brahman. We need not to get confused. So Brahman has got three attributes: Sad attributes, Chid attributes, Ananta or Ananda attributes. Brahman means what? Sad Brahman, Chid Brahman, Anantam Brahman. Or we can say Sad Chid Anantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. This is how Upanishad says. Now there is an entity that is to be known to get liberation. That's what it's called Brahman. Now in these two verses 13 and 14, Bhagavan just explains us how can we understand Sadvastu. According to Upanishad's teaching, Brahman is beyond our perception. Then how can we see the Brahman? So why these Upanishads and Bhagavan Krishna is teaching something which is beyond our understanding? Why should I come to know? But Bhagavan Krishna says, my dear, when you come to know about that entity, you will be liberated definitely. Therefore, for the sake of your liberation, for the sake of your freedom, you have to come to know that. You have to realize that entity which is called Brahman. Then, how can I know? Yes, now, if we have a method, we can just take the help of the world itself. What do you see? I see many people, many head, many legs, many palms. So all of them has got isness, isn't it? That is Brahman. Simple. That is one attribute of Brahman. Sad attribute. Sad means to exist, to existing something, that existence. Okay. Sarvendriya guna abhasam. Sarvendriya varjitam. The any material, that which is existing in this world, also is connected with the action, isn't it? Every object is endowed with action. It means Brahman is endowed with action? No. So Brahman seems to be endowed with action. Sarvendriya guna bhasam, because the eyes are seeing, ears are hearing, nose are smelling. So they have their own capacity to do something, to receive something. So pani means the hands can move and grasp and throw something. The legs can walk and run. It seems to be the Brahman is involved with the action. Now Brahman becomes substratum for all action. Like the movie screen, when movie is moving, means it's keep on and changing the scenes, but the substratum screen exists as it is, like that. That's all simple meaning. There is no connection between movie and the screen, but you cannot see the screen when you are focused on the movie. That's all. All these bodies and movements, they seems to be are connected with Brahman. They are not. Sarvendriya guna bhasam. By the function of all indriyas, It seems to be Brahman is connected with them, which is not true, because Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, that's beyond all Indriyas. Asaktam Sarvabhrit Chaiva. Now, Asaktam means what? That which is endowed with dispassion. Now, you take a petal of lotus. So, put it in the water. It won't stick. Like Brahman is an entity which doesn't stick with anything. Asaktam. Sarvabhrata. But this alone sustains everything. Sustains means, my God. So the Brahman is holding the earth. Brahman is holding all galaxy. Brahman is holding everything. It's not like that. There is a word called Kshma Bharat in Vishnu Sahasranama. Kshma Bharat means what? Mountain is said to be Kshma Bharat, the sustain of the earth. But when you see with a normal understanding, the mountain is sustained by the earth. But the truth is, these mountains are called earth sustainer. How it is? You take a ball which is made of cement and you just fix boulders, means all these iron boulders. Make a magnetic box because all over it is magnetic. You put the ball inside of the box. What will happen? The ball will be floating because everywhere there is magnetic. Now these boulders will do their function to hold the earth in the antariksha, in the space. It will be floating like that. These mountains are sustainers of the earth. The same way, Sarvabhrat means this Brahman alone sustaining everything. Sustaining everything means what? How it sustains, how capable it is. Therefore, we have to understand the movie on the screen. The huge train is going on the screen. Now you are amazed, this screen is only, maximum 5 kg. So how can the screen sustain a train which is, the weight of which is more than a ton? You need not become amazed because there is no connection. The train is a false train. Like the entire creation is sustained by that Brahman. It means Brahman alone exists. Swamiji is too confusing. Please give me one more example. Yes. Then I will bring one more example. You take 2 parts. A part which is, 15 kg. Then there is one more part which is 50 kg. This is 15, it's 50 kg. Now, this 15 kg part, it looks and says to the big part, you are a 50 kg person. How are you, lifting yourself? How are you able to sustain yourself? Then the big part says, in the same way, how you sustain yourself. Could you understand? If you make a 50 kg part, the 50 kg part doesn't require sustaining its own weight because part doesn't have the weight. Only the clay is weight. In that way, the world, every object which has got existence, that existence is the existence of Brahman. It means there is no entity which contains more weight than this Brahman is. The subtlest Brahman can sustain everything. That's all. Sarvabhrata. Everything exists in Brahman alone. Therefore, you see, the earth is floating. Entire galaxy, you see, no ground base. So everything is floating, means Brahman is sustaining. Nirgunam guna bhoktrucha. So you can experience Brahman through all these things. Therefore, I gave an idea in the last session. Every object has got 5 principles. So this first 3 principle is not asti bhati priyam. It's Brahman, then Nama Rupa means names and forms are called Jagat. This entire Jagat is only names and forms. Okay, what exists is nothing but Brahman. That's all simple meaning. Just you understand, leave it. All these more examples. Because when we are in a course, long-term course, at that time I can bring more examples, more solid understandings. So within a half an hour sessions, it's very difficult, because in between there is going to be 24 hours gap. Within this gap, it becomes a headache to maintain the continuity from 2 chapters. But still, by the grace of Lord Venkateshwara, people are able to understand. But Vedanta needs a little bit more effort, So sometimes certain topics maybe it's complicated, but it needs time and effort from us. Therefore, what I say, just understand, in these 2 verses, Bhagavan Krishna says, Brahman is a Sadvastu. Brahman alone exists with a different name and form. That's all. That is to be known. That Brahman is to be known means it has to be realized in this way. You need not to look for Brahman anywhere else in different form. What is experienced, that experienced which is in the form of Sad is only Brahman. That's all. This is enough. Just we'll go to next words. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charam evacha sukshmatva tada vigneyam durastham chantike chatat. And these words, it talks about an object. You take an apple, you can say, so the Brahman which exists inside of the apple. Then what is existing outside of the apple? So you cannot say that, so apple is made up of atom. And what the space around the apple, that is also atom alone. So atom is everywhere. The same principle. So Brahman becomes cause of atom. Therefore Brahman is everywhere. Bahihi antascha bhutanam. So there are beings which are movable and non-movable. So every being has got name and form. So all names and forms has got inside and outside. Apple has got inside and outside. You and me have inside and outside, including my body, mind and sense complex with emotions. All those things belong to me. Then outside of my body nothing belongs to me. That's what our experience. But Bhagavan says the Brahman exists in and through every object, and all outer things of those objects also is pervaded by Brahman. Brahman is pervaded all over. Sukshmatva tadavijnanam. But why I am not able to see? Because the conscious principle I can experience within me. My existence can be experienced by me. So out of me, I'm not experiencing the existence. Between the camera and me, so there is a gap. The gap cannot be filled with the Brahman consciousness because I'm not understanding it. Because it's very subtlest thing we cannot understand. That's all. Sukshmatva tad abhigneyam. That's all. It's very subtlest thing, sir. You cannot understand. But you can experience in the form of your consciousness, in the form of your existence. And what is the difference between consciousness and existence? Both are one and the same. Sadvastu, sadeva chit. The conscious principle which we learnt long ago, it's not the part of body, it's not a product of body, and it is not affected by even our sharira body. It's not dependent on the body. Instead of that, this body is depending on the conscious principle. That conscious principle alone exists. Now Bhagavan has connected the exist principle, conscious principle, one and the same. But it seems to be they are divided in the world. They look different. You and me are not same. You are different, I am different. And this wall and me are not same, and there is a gap in between. So atom is pervaded everywhere. In the same way, this consciousness, even it is pervaded in atom. It seems to be as though they are endowed with distinction. That's what Durastham chantike cha tat. There is no far, there is no near. There's all these experiences only in our mind. So we can go for a funny example. Ask two people to sit by seeing each other and measure the gap between these two people. For example, you and me are sitting. The gap is 4 feet. Okay. Now we are able to measure there is a 4 feet gap. After sleeping, if we are sleeping in the same place, will we able to measure the gap during the sleep? No. That's all. Finished. After getting into deep sleep, if we are taken 1,000 kilometers away from that, still we won't understand the dura, means that farness. The distance cannot be experienced. It means what? Distance itself a myth. The Brahman is everywhere. So there is no distance, the long distance, short distance for Brahman. So Brahman is all pervasive. So these things, Bhagavan Krishna wants to make sure, so Brahman alone exists in the form of all the creatures, being, everything are all pervasive. Let us read the next verse. Avibhaktancha bhuteshu vibhakta vivacha sthiram bhuta bhartru cha tajneyam graseshnu prabha vishnu cha. Bhagavan here he talks about the Anantatva principle. Brahman has got 3 attributes: Sat, Chit, Anantam. Anantam means that which doesn't have limitation. That's what is taught here in these words, because the conscious principle and existent principles one and the same. Both of them are one and the same. So that principle, it seems to be divided into the beings. Your conscious principle is divided because your conscious principle is limited to only your body. You or me are not same. It seems to be vibhaktam, as though it is divided, as though it seems to be having the limitations. Vibhaktam eva sthiram, as though it exists with the limitations, which is not true. There is no limitations. The limitation is because of our karma phala. So my conscious principle, my existence principles only is experienced by me in my body. I'm not able to experience outside, but it is all pervasive. So why I'm not doing that? I'm not able to understand it because of my karma phala. That's what my body is, because of my karma phala. Due to my body, which is caused by ignorance, I'm not able to understand that all pervasiveness of my consciousness, my existence. So I feel only I exist in this body because of what? Ignorance, because of my body which is limited. Okay, but if I understand in my buddhi, so I am all pervasive. I am in the form of consciousness. I am nothing but the existence principle which is in the form of consciousness. So body is dependent on that consciousness which is in the form of I, which is experienced in the form of I. I am consciousness. When you say I am consciousness, but that conscious principle which is realized in limited way, but it doesn't have the limitations. Accept it. Just accept it. You don't look for any kind of evidence. You just accept. This limitation is mithya. This limitation is false. Just we should have in our mind. That is enough. So Brahman is everywhere, all pervasive. That which is in the form of existence principle, conscious principle. So that is in me, but with limitations. That limitations which is only my experience. That experience also it goes when I sleep. Just I have to accept, I am not limited. So due to my karma pula, I have the experience of limitations. Let it be, but it won't bother me. That's all. Because when these limitations, the body which is endowed with limitation, it perishes. I am not going to perish because I am all pervasive. So it will gain another sharira, doesn't matter. If I don't get another sharira, the conscious principle which cannot be lost. So nobody can snatch my conscious principle from me because it is all pervasive. That is the understanding we have to have. Bhuta bhartu cha tajyam graseshnu prabhavishnu cha. Graseshnu grahanasilam pranaya kale grahanasilam. So conscious principle ever exists. Birth comes and goes. Death comes and goes. The Srishti takes place and goes. Creation takes place and goes. The sustenance is experienced, but that pralaya, resolution also, it takes place and it goes. Birth and death or creation or the resolution, let them take place. But I am not going to lose my consciousness. That's all. Now Bhagavan is connected the collective consciousness and the individual consciousness. Collective existence principle and the individual existence principle. So both are one and the same. That principle which is in the form of consciousness, that he explains in the next words. Let us read it. Jyotishamapi tad jyotihi tamasah param uchyate jnanam jneyam jnana gamyam Hride sarvasya vishthitam. Now, Sad principle was explained, Anantam principle also explained. Now, the one more attribute which is known as Chid principle means that which is in the form of the element conscious principle. So, Bhagavan now he is bringing that. We will continue with it from next session. So one more class will be going for this. Therefore, just stick with the teaching that we will see from next session tomorrow. Harihi Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.